Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. This is where myself, Craig Hamilton Parker, a psychic medium, talks about all the things that are happening in the world at the moment and make a few predictions about these things and give my psychic and spiritual insight about current events and things that are happening. And today, I want to talk about the solar eclipse that's coming up on the 8th of April, 2024, share with you some of my thoughts, as well as sharing some of the ideas that are going around and prophecies about this, some of the biblical prophecies about this, some of the astrological implications, some of the superstitions. Let's have a think about the solar eclipse 2024. So welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi. So you've probably heard about it because it's in the news quite a lot, and there's been quite a lot of speculation about this of the solar eclipse that's going to be happening. I've mentioned it in my astrology predictions before, and this is a very important eclipse, one of the most important that's been around for a long time because it's a total solar eclipse, and it's going to take an interesting path too, because the eclipse's path is going to go right up from Mexico and sweep across the northeast of America, of the United States, passing through such states as Texas, and also through Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, New York, and Vermont, and right up to New Hampshire and Maine before crossing into Canada. So this has quite an important effect on the places where the shadow of the eclipse passes. So it's going to have a lot of interesting energy and power, particularly to world events and events happening in America in particular. So the moon is also a supermoon at this time, which means it's a bit closer to the Earth than normal. So it's going to be quite a spectacular sight. Obviously, lots of people are going to get out and have a look at it. Astrologically, it's an important time too, because we've also got a conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus coming up quite soon too, which is also a very powerful, energetic time. So eclipses have are really like changing points astrologically. Talking in terms of Western astrology anyway, it's very much the idea that it's a new start when we have a solar eclipse. When we have a lunar eclipse, it tends to be the ending of things. So this period is going to be a time of new beginnings, new changes, but also sometimes these can be dramatic and difficult changes happening. We've also got lots of other things happening in the planets as well, with the Pluto return as it moves into Aquarius in and out for a while, which is going to help with the history of things for the future, as it were. These are going to be dramatic, important, or gradual rather, changes into a better age, we hope, particularly with the advent of Pluto in Aquarius. So the eclipses are turning points, and they're very, very important in terms of how they affect the world. It's going to be in 19 degrees Aries. Now, Aries is the first of the zodiac signs in Western astrology, and is therefore a sign that is particularly could point to a new beginning, a new era of some sign of some sort. It's right at the start of the zodiac signs. The last time it happened was in 2005, I think it was 2005, the year that Charles and Camilla got married. If you want to look back in your life at what happened at the same date, 8th of April, 2005, you'll find that there probably are a number of very interesting synchronicities and similarities that may happen at this time of the year, this year round, as it did then, because we've got exactly the same 19 degrees Aries, which is just quite interesting coincidence in itself. So these eclipses give us kind of exaggerated energy in many ways. A very active thing. It's a catalyst, I suppose, in many respects. And it will mean that there could be lots of changes happening in the world. Perhaps things we're already aware of may see a more pivotal turn. We may see changes. For example, changes in leadership could be one of the things that we see with 2024 ahead with this. For example, it goes through Canada too. So could we possibly see Trudeau fall from power during this time? Because already he's beginning to get a lot of more dislike than before, I think. He's not as popular as he used to be. There's a lot of potential for him to tumble. So this extra energy put into this, could we perhaps see the fall of Trudeau or other leaders change perhaps? Could it also mean Biden might move from power? Because again, President Biden, I felt, was not the best of candidates for the Democrats, really. I mean, putting an old man that's half in this world, half in the next, is perhaps not the best of candidates to put up against the ferocious wolf Trump. So we could perhaps even see possibility of Biden being changed in that period. So the actual date itself, with these eclipses, the idea is that on either side of it, the power is strong. It could last even up to a year, they say, the power of this type of eclipse, because it is so unusual. So anything around this time is going to be a lot of pivotal turning points. Decisions made in the month of April are going to be very important for anybody in your personal life as well as in the world at large. And also, depending how it falls in a person's chart, it can mean sudden rise to prominence for some people. So in your chart, depending how it falls, you'd have to look into the full astrology of this, but in your chart, how it falls, it could mean a sudden escalation on your opportunities. That means there's going to be new people coming into the world with influence and strength and power. So we may see new faces in the media. We may see new people suddenly becoming a lot more dominant than before. Assange, I feel there's going to be a big change around him at this time too. I sense there's something like that around him. Also, it is a time of volatility because it's like throwing a lot of extra heat into the fire. And it could be a time also, I feel, where we could see perhaps some more terrorist attacks. April 2024 could be a time of terrorist attacks. And similarly, at this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period with this influence of the eclipse. So we need to watch out for that too. That could be a very difficult time, perhaps. It won't necessarily be bang on the 8th, but we are thinking here that this is a time of an expansion of energy. It's also an opportunity, they say, for an expansion of consciousness too, because eclipses were feared so much in the past. It doesn't mean to say that they are necessarily a negative influence. They are a positive influence. For example, the states, for example, that the shadow falls over, such as Texas, could see come energy coming from those areas, new legislation, perhaps new laws, perhaps new figures, people that are focused there and could become stronger. So it's something happening in the energy. When we may get to know that in due course. It's like maybe Trump, maybe there's something for Trump in this period because he's been through hell and back with the courts and the legal things. Could it have an effect on a turning point for him as well? Could this be the opportunity to finally put to bed some of these legal things? Or could it even work the opposite way round and, the legal things could be turned against him? So at this time, there's been in history actually quite a lot of events that have happened that have been strongly influenced by eclipses. Eclipses have always been seen as portents. One of the most interesting in history was when Alexander the Great was fighting the Persians at the Battle of Gaugamela, way back in history, and um, he saw that the troops saw in the sky an eclipse. There was a great eclipse at that time, which they saw as a good portent. These Greek warriors were saying, "Wow, this is on our side. This shows that we will win the battle." And similarly, the Persians who was fighting against saw it as the opposite. They saw it as a bad omen. And so that eclipse was one of the big turning points. It was when Alexander the Great won the battle against the Persians and basically changed history. From that was a turning point in history at the time. Many Christians say that that was foreseen in the book of Daniel, and point to it as a prophecy in the Bible that had come true. Similarly, we have other ones in the Bible, which in the Acts chapter 2, it talks about signs in the heaven, and that time people will prophesy, it says. So could it be that when these signs are in the heaven, here's me making prophecy, could it be that all of us have a power of prophecy during these times, when there's this special energy in the air? Also, Halley's Comet, of course, was taken as a great sign of uh, a battle, because that went across the sky in 1066. And those that have studied history and English history will know that was when the time of the Battle of Hastings. It's on the Bayeux Tapestry. They have the sign, and also around the world, because that was very dominant in the sky in 1066. Absolutely the major turning point in British history when with the Norman conquest. So and similarly, there was an eclipse. I think it was in 1780, when we had the Lisbon earthquake, and that's why it makes me think: could there be more earthquakes associated with this period of time in 2024? And that was, again, there was an eclipse 10 days before the Lisbon earthquake, which people were seeing as a portent, and that was one of the biggest earthquakes ever. Absolutely wrecked Lisbon. And there was also other comets were also very powerful in history too. I think it was in 1843 we had a great comet go across the sky, and people believed it was a sign of the second coming. So a lot of people of strong religious persuasion are saying that this eclipse is one of the signs of the coming times. It's the signs, because it goes over cities with very strong biblical associations and names, which are seen in like the Gospel of Luke and things like this, and in particular the references to Nineveh, which it travels over 7 cities with the name of Nineveh, or associated with that, which again is mentioned in biblical signs of the coming of the Messiah. So we often see this. We see in the signs in the sky prophecies. We often perhaps overreact sometimes, because these things, they come and they go, and they sort of say, well, okay, we're still waiting. But I definitely think there is an energy to it, and I think perhaps sometimes people overread into things. But there have been, like I said, that I quoted that one in the Bible. It did say about the prophecies of Alexander the Great, which I think it does seem to appear to have been mentioned there quite clearly, that it would happen. Similarly, in Revelations 6:12, it talks about signs in the sky, again, of a great blood red eclipse, with the stars will fall from the sky at this time, and a great shaking and the opening of the 6th seal. So we can overread into these things, but at the moment there's a lot of people out there worrying about this. My thoughts are, as I've said at the start, I feel there are going to be energetic changes. We will probably also see satellite disruption, because at the same time this is happening, this is something I predicted a while back. You will remember I said this would be a year of massive solar flares and flare-ups, unexpected flare-ups from the sun, and there has been this. And now scientists are talking about there could be some more. And if this was to occur at a similar time, we would perhaps see satellite communications damaged and cell phones knocked out. And some people are claiming that these things are already being anticipated in America, and people are a bit concerned about this. And Nostradamus too talks about eclipses and the importance of eclipses. He talks in Century One, Quatrain 48, and I've got it in front of me here. He says, "When the eclipse of the sun will then be, the monster will be seen in full day. Quite otherwise will one interpret it. High price unguarded, none will have foreseen it." So he seems to talk here about some strange um, a huge sort of eclipse um, in which this monster is released on the world. Could that be another reference to problems in the world that may perhaps start at the time of this solar eclipse? I think, again, it's a bit like the Bible. We can read too much into these things. It's not my feelings here, but that's what I think. That's one of the things Nostradamus was talking about. And whether we relate it now to this time, he also mentions eclipses of the sun in Century 3, Quatrain 34, and in Century 9, Quatrain 83. All of these mention the power of the eclipse and how it will change events. But obviously, from what we can take from this is that this is a energetically powerful time, maybe a time when, you know, we will see some disruption in the world. The day I'm speaking here today, we had that terrible destruction of the bridge in which the ship tore it all down. I mean, these sort of calamities can happen at these times of a powerful eclipse. But again, it's important we don't sort of get too carried away with these things, I have to say as well, because eclipses were always a fearful thing to people who didn't understand what was happening. In earlier times, you know, when the sun was blocked out, that was like a symbol of the end of the world. You know, here was the sun, the god, the first god we ever worshipped in earliest times was the sun. That was our first, you know, when if we didn't know what the sun was, we didn't know what the earth was, before we had all this knowledge, we would look into the sky and we'd be absolutely in awe of the sun going across the sky, wouldn't we? In the early days of mankind. You know? And animals sometimes must look at the sun and wonder. We see Boo sometime, our cat, you know, watching the sun go down. I mean, what goes through his little mind? You know, what is that thing over there? And I think we saw the sun as a symbol of God, didn't we? There's the Apollo symbol, the Ra symbol, the throughout all the religions, the sun is the symbol of light. It's the sun, and the sun symbol of Godhead. And when it goes below the ground, as it were, as we would think it would go below the ground, the darkness came on the earth, and darkness became a symbol of fear, and darkness became a symbol of evil, because those were the time we were most vulnerable. So when we see a great shadow come across the earth, it hits our unconscious mind too, doesn't it? It hits our instincts. People in the past would always say that, you know, you've got to avoid eating and drinking during the time of the eclipse because the energy is so bad. Some cultures still believe that to this day, that it's unlucky to eat or drink during an eclipse period. They say it could lead to digestive problems and ill health. I think a scientist would probably repute that quite strongly, but at the same time, you know, there are energetic things in the world that have not been explained by science yet. They say that at the time of an eclipse, you must cover the mirrors and windows of the house. My grandmother used to always cover the mirror every time there was thunder and lightning. I don't know, has your gran ever done that? Put a comment below if you have. Oh, and by the way, give this video a like. I keep forgetting to ask for likes from you guys. Give us a like and a thumbs up, eh? But anyway, my gran used to do this. Did you have that happen? Used to put not on the eclipses, but on lightning. Used to terrify us as kids because we didn't know what was going to happen, you know. So these old superstitions, you know, and they said that you pregnant women had to be very careful during eclipses. You should stay indoors because of the energies of the sun were so bad. I think the sun does give an energy, but you know, whether we should say these are superstitions or whether we should say that these things do have some energetic effects upon us. I certainly feel the moon has an effect and the sun has an effect, and we've stopped living with nature now, haven't we? So again, they say to stay indoors during eclipse. And they say that it would have an effect on crops and animals. People used to plant by the moon very much. Um, and they used to take a lot of measures to protect their crops and livestock during the times of eclipses. One of the churches would always ring their bells to ward off evil influences at the time of an eclipse, and that was particularly within farming communities would do that, and they still have many beliefs around the world to this day. Do you have any strange superstitions about eclipses? I'd be very interested to hear of them in the comments. I know that a lot of people to this day practice many rituals and rituals of protection during the times of eclipses. It's certainly very much in magical lore as well. One of the things you're not supposed to do is handle sharp objects, because you've got to avoid sharp objects during the time of eclipse, because they can turn against you, as it were, and you can hurt yourself with them or cut yourself. And that's again why they say stay indoors, put your head down, get a tin hat. And they also say to hide valuable belongings during a time of eclipse. Have you heard of that one too? That thieves will be about at the time of eclipses, and one must be very careful of theft and people stealing from you. And never make an important decision, they say, at the time of an eclipse. This is another one that comes from multiple cultures because it's considered inauspicious to make important decisions at the time of eclipse. And also, again, it's all tied in very much also with the idea of warding off evil spirits at this time. It's also often with some cultures considered as being a bit like the Halloween time for a period of time when the evil influences walk across the world. So on the whole, eclipses, I know astrologers will say these are turning points now, this is energy points. I think it is. But eclipses were always seen as a fearful thing. And it's full of all sorts of fascinating and interesting thoughts. I think the thing it does to us, for me, I feel it appeals to my unconscious mind. And what do we mean by that? We mean all that part of ourselves that Carl Jung talked about, particularly the collective unconscious, that is the storehouse, as it were, of the universal memories of mankind. I'm not talking about the universal mind now. I'm kind of talking here, or perhaps I am. I'm talking here about all the stuff that's there deep in our minds somewhere, or perhaps it is in the etheric as well, because I think we connect with that, where we have the memories of ancient times, where we remember the times when we sat around fires late at night in the woodlands, and we had the fear of animals, when we had we would be transfixed by the sun, or would be transfixed by seeing serpents losing their skin and transforming and things like that. All those ancient thoughts and knowledge that go right back to our earliest ancestors through the evolution of our physical and spiritual selves. And I think it connects us sometimes. We are still part of nature. We are still part of this incredible thing that is life on Earth. And I think when we look at the moon and we see it change and go in weird, strange colors and things like that, or we see the sun blocked out, it often makes us think, perhaps all this world we live in is not so important. Perhaps what really is important is our connection with the world of nature, of realizing that on one level, we're still just like those early primitive people that used to look up at the skies in our archaic sort of times and would look up in wondering what it all is. We think we've explained it all now. We can say it's planets going around the sun and its moons going around the earth and so forth like that, and orbits and mathematics and the rest of it. But still behind it all, there's this mystery of existence, this mystery of being part of something weird and wonderful and strange and awesome. Because we look at it all and we think that's where awe is, isn't it? We see it all, think, how did it all be? How could it come about? And I think for me, something like that takes me into those realms of inspiration, and think what a wonderful thing it is to be conscious, to be able to witness these things, to be able to think about these things, and to be able to be filled with wonder at the glories of the miracle of existence. So do you like what I have to say? And do you like my work? Well, why don't you support my work? Have a look in the description below to go to my website, find out about psychic readings, find out about our Naadi readings with the Indian Naadi Oracle, buy my books, and join my workshops online by Zoom. All there on the website psychics.co.uk.